Hello there, you're watching The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We are live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. I am blessed Sogah and this is The Pulse. Coming up this afternoon, New Patriotic Party MPs divided over President Akufo-Addo's decision to defer the dismissal of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. This afternoon, JoyNews is learning and receiving reports that some individuals attempted bribing some of the lawmakers to back down on their demands for Ken to go.
And I'm referring to situations of yesterday. Yeah. I am saying that we have sound enough warning to people who want to influence members of our coalition with materialism. It won't happen.
The pressure is mounting. A pro-opposition group is turning the heat on Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, asking him to account for his stewardship and also impressing that the finance minister be relieved of his duties. And there's a lot more happening on the economy. I still have hope that we can turn things around. The words of former President John Mahama as he speaks on Ghana's economic crisis. Here on The Pulse, we assess the policy proposal measures being tabled by the 2020 NDC flag bearer.
Consciously eat more of our local foods like yam, local grains like maize, rice, our local rice, cassava, beans, gobe.
We hear more from John Mahama shortly. A lot more is happening in Parliament. The minority side of the House is demanding the leadership of the Electoral Commission and the National Identification Authority are brought before Parliament immediately over the voter registration exercise. Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu is alleging that the EC is planning to ditch its voters' database and to rely on that of the National Identification Authority.
That the Electoral Commission wants to rely on the National Identification Authority data. The primary question the Honorable Ahmed is asking is, so what has happened to the Electoral Commission's own biometric data?
We'll get more from Parliament shortly. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible journalism. I am blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities, Digni Lu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're also streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. It's at JoyNews on TV. Feel free to be a part of the show. We'll give you details shortly. And this afternoon, leading voices in the NPP in the demand for the removal of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta this afternoon, alleging a grand scheme by some individuals in both the private and public sector to influence members of the New Patriotic Party who are in Parliament with money to abandon the crusade and to allow the embattled Finance Minister to continue to stay in office. Andy Appiah-Kubi, who is also one of the voices and a member of Parliament for Asante Achim North, says he will be forced to expose such individuals if they do not stop the attempt to bribe MPs. Many Ghanaians are still wondering why the group of 95 majority MPs backtracked on their request, with some suggesting money might have changed hands. But speaking to Raymond Akwa on upfront, the MP who led the charge demanding the removal of the finance minister threatened to take anybody who fuels these allegations on.
Did you take money to change your mind?
Did we take money?
Yes.
You think we will do that? And I'm saying that I want somebody, one person, or anybody.
One person from where?
Anybody associated with any such person who thinks that he can give money. Anybody. If I hear anybody working for any of such persons, or if working for institutions.
We are speaking in a vacuum. Which persons and institutions are you talking about?
I am saying that if you are saying, were we motivated by money?
Yes.
I said no. But I want somebody from where you think they can bring money. Maybe from government.
Yes, but government is the only party in this case. Were you giving money by government to change your mind?
I want anybody from government institution, from institution owned by members of government. If, say, you are a minister of state or you are a government functionary and you own Joy FM, if I hear somebody from Joy FM making an allegation of that nature, that notwithstanding the fact that it's not coming from you, I will come out with information. I want somebody to do that.
Sorry,
now.
what do you mean by information? Information that you were bribed or you were not bribed?
I will come out with information that we are beyond the bribes.
So you were approached with bribe?
I am saying that we are beyond that. Our motivation is not the financial inducement. We don't have money in their pocket, but at least we have conscience. We will not reduce ourselves to that situation. And I warn you that though anybody who wants to attempt, please be advised. I'm sure we have sent this message to some people. They have sat upright. And I'm referring to situations of yesterday. Yeah. I am saying that we have sound enough warning to people who want to influence members of our coalition with materialism. It won't happen.
People are trying to influence you.
I have said that. I have proved to people. And I want to challenge anybody. Or I'm saying that if I know that anybody in government owns even a business or owns even Joy FM, and Joy FM staff comes out to say that, or puts in on a platform, or puts in even on social media, we will see what will happen.
Now, I mean, so you're categorically denying that?
Yes, and I'm not.
Is it for you alone or for other members?
I'm not only denying.
Yes,
I'm challenging.
That anybody has evidence?
Anybody? I'm not denying. I'm challenging, and I want that challenge to come. And
because they say your backtracking is strange. It's not. You let.
I have not backtracked. Yeah. I have not backtracked, and I'm not afraid to say it. I have not backtracked, and indeed, I'm only giving respect to what my majority caucus has said.
And ever since that revelation, a lot of pressure is mounting within the grassroots of the NPP for the president to stick to his time limit of sacking Ken Ofori-Atta once the IMF negotiations are completed. Well, let's bring in Kamal Amasama Bruni. He happens to be the spokesperson for the Alliance for Foot Soldiers Advocacy, a group affiliated to the governing New Patriotic Party. Thank you, sir, for your time. You are mounting pressure on the president to stick to his words. Do you have doubts that indeed, after the presentation of the budget and the completion of the IMF negotiations, the president may be a bit more reluctant in letting Ken go? Is that the feeling you have?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. We are not doubtful of the president's statement. We are only reiterating the fact that there should be exhibition of goodwill. And if you, I listened to what you said, the video you played about upfront with Honorable Apia Kubi, and you could clearly hear him say that it's an act of respect that they are according the president. So definitely, I don't see anything wrong with it if you accord the president that respect. So we are also reiterating and supporting the call of the MPs for the president to kind of abide by the time limit he's given and the assurance he's giving the MPs, for which they've also accepted to the request that, okay, they should allow the Honorable Minister to be in office for the stated reasons that he's giving them, for which they were convinced. That's the position AFA is also sticking to.
And I recall that sometime back you were asking for an immediate reshuffle. It was part of the demands that you tabled before the president. Are you letting that go, knowing that Ken Ofori-Atta may leave office?
Well, the fact still remains. If you look at the letter the majority caucus released through and signed by the majority leader, the fact still remains that the Honorable Minister now has nowhere to go, regardless of the period he's given. Definitely he will see the sun. So if you listen to, or if you read the letter they issued, you get to know that definitely, as in human institutions, once there's dialogue, you also need to accept to some terms and conditions, but it doesn't mean that you are backtracking from your earlier stance. So I want to believe the negotiations they've had as majority caucus and together with the president, that has allowed some of these things. So I don't see any backtracking, even from the letter that the majority caucus
yes,
released.
but I'm talking about the earlier statement you released as the Alliance of Foot Soldiers Advocacy. You, in fact, went ahead to name some persons who you felt were not performing, a reason for which the president should go ahead with a reshuffle.
If you look at Alliance for Foot Soldiers, our press conference, we even held it in July. We held our press conference in July. So if you look at it, 2-3 months down the line, we now have our MPs join the call we made some months back. And let me clarify this position that in our press statement, the press conference we held the last time, we didn't mention anybody's name because we didn't want it to look personal, so that the purpose for which we are doing the press conference will be lost. But definitely we knew some of the ministers who were not performing. And now our MPs have joined us and they've been bold enough for me to say, to mention a name. And if you look at all the president's talk, definitely the name of the finance minister is the name that is mentioned more than any other MP, because by virtue of his position, he holds a key position to determine how the economy of the country is run. And I believe that is why they finally joined the affairs call that the finance minister should leave. Maybe subsequently, other issues may come if the whole, some of the ministries should be reshuffled, because we are not calling, and I don't think the MPs are equally calling for a total overhaul, because when you do that, then basically you are bringing down the government. So it's not a total overhaul. But 1 or 2 ministries or 1 or 2 positions that they feel, and equally AFA also felt then that we're not up to the billing. That was what we called for the reshuffle. And if we put it mildly, who were given that kind of a bluff, that to the extent that we were not seen to be carrying that much weight. Now we have the heavyweights joining us, and we 100% side with them, and we are backing them. And I'm happy that the letter still says that if you look at the letter, it says, majority letter, the last paragraph says that upon further deliberations, they acceded to the fact that, okay, they will accept to the terms and conditions. So be it.
And I recall speaking to one of the MPs for Subin, I believe, who told me that the reason for which the MPs are asking for the removal of Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is because the grassroots is calling for that. How scientific is this demand? The fact that within the base of the party, a lot more people want to see the finance minister go.
Well, if you look at the word grassroots and foot soldiers, these are synonymous words. And AFA, we are representing the grassroots. And I can tell you that, yes, they are right with the core that the finance minister should go. It is resonating with the grassroots, because one of the reasons why if it were to be any jurisdiction, the finance minister, on matter of principle, he himself would have resigned. Because this is a man who is leading the negotiation, and who has made the whole world and the nation and the whole world at large to believe that he's not a believer in this IMF negotiation. So if finally the government has decided to go on that tangent, on a matter of principle, why should you lead something you don't have conviction in? So it's based on principle. You should have even resigned to let Mr. President know that, no, I don't believe in this IMF. I've held public fora to state my points clearly that I don't support IMF negotiations. So for me to lead something I think I don't believe in, it will sound weird and upset to me. I therefore feel that humbly I have to resign.
Right.
But well, this is a part of the world we live in, and I don't think, even now, the call that is coming on him, left onto me, he should have even sat with the president now to let him know that the fact that the MPs have even come openly, I'll have a torrid time working with him. So the best is for me to step down.
But then this, many say, is a face-saving move for your political party, and by extension you as members of the New Patriotic Party, who promised the people of Ghana that indeed you are going to transform the economy. Don't you feel that you're simply playing politics here and sacrificing someone who may not necessarily be directly the one giving the orders about how to run the economy?
If somebody is saying we are doing face saving, I certainly don't know what the person is trying to allude to. Because the fact is, before COVID, how was the economy? It was booming. We were not having many of these challenges. These are global in nature. We agree to that fact. And there's a human aspect to it. And I'm saying that, I'll go back to the point I told you that On a matter of principle, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta himself should have even resigned. Let's even put everything aside that yes, yes, he's the one we are now all accusing, and he holds one of the key positions in government. Which country will you go and you didn't have a finance minister in that country? And I don't think Ken, if somebody says that we are using him as a scapegoat, I don't think the Honorable Finance Minister just goes to meeting with the economic management team, and he just goes to sit there without making any input. He is one of the persons who pushed or championed this e-levy thing. And even President himself said it at a point, that he was convinced by the e-levy, and that's why he agreed to the passage of it. We all know that he was the architect of it. So there's no way the finance minister just goes to meetings, sits, and then accepts whatever he's told. Then basically, you are not a good finance minister. It is your input and your capabilities that even makes the president to appoint you in the first place to become a finance minister. So if the economy is now faltering, he needs to take the blame, because the president is not a finance person. That's why he called him to come and assist him in that regard.
Kamal.
Therefore, when someone says that we are using him as a scapegoat, I beg to differ.
Kamal Amasaman Bruni is spokesperson for the Alliance for Foot Soldiers Advocacy, obviously mounting pressure on the president to dismiss Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Well, former President John Dramani Mahama is one of the individuals also adding his voice to that. He has blamed the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta for the country's economic woes. According to him, the president's seeming inability to remove the Finance Minister from office is making the situation worse. He was speaking at a lecture on the economy Thursday, where he stressed that the incompetence of the sector minister and the entire Akufo-Addo regime accounts for the depreciation of the Ghana cedi.
The biggest blame for the current tragic situation in which we find ourselves lies with the very people charged with managing the country, and not with the pandemic, not with any war in any country, as has been unprofessionally posited. And Ghana has been treated as an experimental playground or a family heirloom. And I regret to say this was all avoidable. Things could have been different. And I've remained very convinced that they could have been different. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to restate what I have said over the years. We are ever ready and willing to share pragmatic steps that will help put our nation back on track. Ideally, in situations like this, backroom channels of communications should exist between the ruling party and the opposition to allow for exchange of views on important matters of national interest to the benefit of Ghanaians. Unfortunately, that has not been the case under this government, for which reason we in NDC are compelled on almost all occasions to engage the people of Ghana directly on some of the things we believe ought to be done to mitigate the untold suffering of our people and get our economy back on track. Even though government has requested for an IMF program, the lateness of the decision and the extent of economic decay means that an early approval of a fund program could prove elusive. It may take a couple of more months before an agreement is reached on a program between Ghana and the fund. In the meantime, there's the need to stem the rapid decline in the economy and reduce the unbearable hardships Ghanaians are going through.
Well, John Dramani Mahama also says he hopes President Akufo-Addo's words in the upcoming address to the nation will bring some sort of relief to Ghanaians amidst the current economic hardship. He said the current economic situation does not warrant the president to be engaging in vain-glorious pursuit of vindication. He reiterated that the country's challenges are domestically driven.
Amidst boastful claims that they were the best managers of the economy, Immediately after the elections, it became clear that we had been thrown into a bottomless pit of debt round our necks, staggering budget deficits, and a rapidly deteriorating fiscal position. The looming disaster at the time required an urgent response. And even as the crisis deepened, earlier this year, we in NDC besieged government with many prescriptions, which I articulated in the Ghana at the Crossroads speech in May this year. And I urged government to seek multilateral assistance urgently. Among others, I also called on President Akufo-Addo to expeditiously convene a national dialogue on the economy, at which the best and brightest minds of our nation would be brought together to huddle and formulate a robust response to the challenges confronting us. I guess that is too late now. I re-echo demands by Ghanaians that the finance minister and the chair of the economic management team, who have been primarily responsible for this economic catastrophe, should be relieved of their positions to breed confidence among stakeholders and offer the economy a new lease of life.
Well, at this point, I want to bring in Dr. Michael Ayamga Adongo, development economist with the University of Development Studies. Thank you, sir, for your time here on the Pulse. So the issue about homegrown solutions, how feasible is that in such a time of crisis?
Yes, thank you for having me. I think homegrown solutions here basically means looking through our budget and then things to us be able to at least manage our deficits. You is that, and as the former president rightly alluded, we are shut out of the capital market.
Dr. Adongo, are you with us? It appears that we've lost connection to Dr. Ayamga Adongo there, but just a few of the issues that you may have missed. The former president talking about the need for us to try as much as possible to grow what it is that we eat and eat what we grow. These are part of the solutions that he's been proffering at that lecture last night. Dr. Adongo, if you're with us, we're having some challenges with your connection. Probably you might want to redress that, and then we'll continue with the conversation. Dr. Adongo, we lost you briefly when you were making the point, and kindly unmute for me, yes, so I can get you. Yes.
Yes. Right. One of the things that made former President Mahama stand out yesterday was the fact that he started his speech acknowledging the difficulties that Ghanaians are going through, and was not someone who came across as a former president who is not actually suffering the way every Ghanaian is suffering, and then proceeded to outline measures. I am not overly optimistic, but I can say that if the Minister of Finance actually just removes President Mahama's cover, the cover of President Mahama's speech, and then put the measures he has suggested as Ghana's homegrown solutions to the IMF, I believe he could fast track our agreement. It is that short and simple. We have to start looking at our budget page by page and making small cuts rather than looking for something huge in terms of either loans from the capital market, which are not going to come anyway, or maybe some big support somewhere. The president was right, the former president, I should say, was right in saying that the Minister of Finance is some kind of impediment to our securing of an IMF loan. Because if you at least refer to grapevine news, you will notice that even people in government feel the Minister of Finance is unreachable, is inflexible, And you cannot report him to the president because the thing that if you take him to the president, you're not going to get the ear that you're supposed to get in order to bring some changes. So even though the minister is working with, think that he is not the team player and someone who would listen to them as he ought to. One of the sticking points in President Mahama's speech yesterday was the fact that up till now, you still do not have those backdoor communication, those backdoor channels that will allow everybody to at least bring in some ideas on board. It is surprising that we are talking about an IMF team now, and the Honorable Secretary, who is one of the most experienced politicians and economists in this country, who actually took the nation to the IMF the last time we went there, is not part of the government in negotiating this deal. That is how excluded the rest of the country is from trying to get a solution for the problems we are facing. You would notice that even in the last 2 weeks, the president of the Bank of Ghana and the World Bank did allude to the fact that he was surprised that Ghana did not avail itself to the debt service suspension initiative that the G7 proposed and the IMF and the World Bank were implementing. That points to a lack of fiscal agility. That if the Minister of Finance was agile enough, they would have noticed that taking advantage of that initiative would have given us fiscal space. But also you can understand that this government doesn't want something that will compel it to adhere to certain physical disciplines. They want a loan, 3 billion, bam, it has landed, and then everybody is going in looking for what they can get. But going in for a debt service suspension initiative, that will then give you the room to grow your own income and use it. That wasn't attractive enough for them. So if you look at everything that happened before our challenges and are happening currently, the Minister of Finance is someone that I agree that he is an impediment. And yes, we need to start by looking at the size of government, and former President Mahama was right.
And we'll deal with that shortly. But I just wanted to take your thoughts on what it is that government itself had put out after the IMF negotiations in Washington, the fact that talk is progressing steadily. We understand that the only impediment now has got to do with the debt restructuring. Could that not be much more of the factor limiting Ken Ofori-Atta's ability to make progress, instead of his personality and his inability to deliver a well-functioning economy?
I have said time without number that when it comes to debt restructuring, the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta should be the last person to get near debt restructuring. One, he's an industry player, somebody firmly tied to the banks. He himself is a bank owner, or as you say, former bank owner. His deputy is a bank owner or associated with bank owners. His friends are bank owners. And you should know that different banks are variously exposed to government debt. And if we're going to do debt treatment, and as many are suggested that we are likely going to do some domestic debt treatment, it means that there are forms of debt treatment you could pursue that will hurt some banks less than it will hurt others. Now you want to ask yourself, is the Minister of Finance going to pursue debt restructuring or maybe debt treatment in such a way that it will disadvantage Data Bank and the rest? The Minister of Finance already hasn't got too many friends when it comes to how he treated the last banking sector cleanup. And I think that because of his close association with the banking sector, being a direct beneficiary of what may even happen in the debt restructuring, he should step aside. He should not even be near there. The president said we should wait until he secures an IMF deal. I think that the more reason why the honorable minister should leave before we even secure an IMF deal is the fact that he is closely and firmly tied to the banking sector.
But the issue of experience, then comes to play, isn't it? For someone to know about the sector and what it means in terms of doing debt restructuring, isn't it? Because that will be a technical process, you agree?
Blessed, that argument is overstretched. God forbid, but if the Minister of Finance dies tonight, tomorrow, are we not going to continue? Yeah, we're going to continue. So that argument is flat and is dead on arrival. We are a nation of 30-something million, have thousands of economies. This government has men and women to do the job. It's not only the Honorable Ken Oforiatta. And I should say that the reason he should step aside is the fact that not everybody trusts him to deliver. And if up to 95% of your own members of parliament think you shouldn't be there, keeping him there is going to alienate a lot of people. It's going to cause people not to be wholly committed to the exercise, and we cannot have consensus. And in a time like this, when we are talking about domestic debt treatment, a terrain that you do not actually have a blueprint to follow, and you have very few examples in the world to point to. All we know about debt restructuring relates to external debt. For domestic debt, there is no S action and B result. We are actually gambling, and we may end up worse than we started. So if we are going to go through such an experiment that we do not know what will come out of it, we better have consensus, we better have trust, we better have people that can galvanize all the energies in the room and get people to willing to commit. And I don't think the Honorable Finance Minister, as it stands now, is that person.
Clearly, getting an IMF deal by the end of the year, the experts say, may not be feasible. What's the immediate way out?
As I indicated, the immediate way is for us to look at the entire government program, stop what we must not do immediately. We stop that. We have to, for example, cut down the size of government. And I told somebody that when you say cut down the size of government, it's not the salary and the entitlements that ministers get. It is what they waste in the process of implementing government program that is the problem. And the more you have, the more they waste. I was joking with a friend. I said it's like monkeys in a maize farm. The more you have, the more they waste. So even reducing the size of government reduces the waste, the number of actors who are going to waste. And that is why I think that it's imperative that we look at reducing the number of ministers, the number of government offices, the duplication in various portfolios. That is causing nothing but confusion and apathy as far as government machinery is concerned. We start from there. Then we look at the programs. I said there are some programs that the time we instituted them, they were necessary. Now they are not. The National Service Scheme is one of them. Make it optional. We are struggling to pay them. We don't even have places to post them. When they go to some offices, they barely have anything to do. Yet when somebody has an opportunity and wants to go to work, it is mandatory to do national service. So you have to say, can I cut some few CDs from that place? You look at it in that manner, and we are going. We need to start by stopping programs that do not have immediate consequences, and then pursuing those that we think that are required to keep.
Okay. And Doc, very finally, I want us to talk about the Ghana CD. It's performing in an undulating manner in the last few days. We've seen a depreciation and an appreciation, marginal one it may be, and then it goes back again to its position. What's accounting for this bizarre factor?
You see, if there is something you can do in economics and not be able to get away from it, and that is printing money. And when you print money and you say you have printed money and you say you haven't, the exchange rate and the inflation is what exposes you. I did indicate the other time that as it is now, the Ministry of Finance and even the Bank of Ghana are totally powerless when it comes to regulating the exchange rate. That is because there's too much CDs in the economy that if you pump in dollars, they will use the CDs to demand those dollars. That is what we are currently facing. And the decision of the Bank of Ghana to open its door to government and then do official financing way beyond the 5% allowed margin led to massive influx of CDs into the economy. And people have realized that because the CD is losing value, anytime I get CDs, let me change it into dollars. So as it stands now, there is enough CDs in the market to lick up any dollars we put in there. That is the existing challenge we are facing. as long as official financing go on, even through the backdoor channel, we are going to struggle to be able to stabilize the cedi, because people are basically not using the cedi for anything. They're using it to buy dollars. And it's a problem. If you have cedis today, tomorrow the value of the cedi is going to go down. And you can't build a house in one day. You may not be able to buy anything to trade. So the best thing to do is to store it in a currency that is relatively stable. So the demand for dollars now has nothing to do with importation. It's just people are afraid of losing their money, and then they're putting it there. I also think that there is something we need to do, especially when it comes to the commercial banks. They are not helping the situation. The gap between the interbank rate and the buying rate of a foreign currency from let's say customers is so huge that it gives people the incentive to still want to demand fiscal dollars or foreign currency and go and sell it in the black market. For example, if you go to the bank now, the dollar may be going 13, 14. You may end up getting 12 cedis for dollars that were wired to you. If you demand fiscal dollars, you may pay 3%. Take the fiscal dollars, take it to the black market, and you still make a profit. So the banks are not actually encouraging people to change whatever monies they have into cedis, and that is also another challenge we are facing. So I believe that there is not going to be a very big thing that we can do to stem the downward spiral of the cedi. It's going to take small actions, dropping a little thing here, a little thing there. That is the only way we can stabilize the cedi. But to think of, let's say, get 3 billion and it will reverse the fall of the cedi, just give a few months, 6, 7 months, we'll be back here. Remember, I told you when we got the Afro-Exim Bank loan that in 2 months, we're back where we were. We didn't even reach 2 months. That is how the situation is.
How close are we to getting out of the woods in terms of our economic meltdown?
I've been telling my friends that we're going to lose this decade. And first in our 40s, we're probably going to face a very serious retirement, because the time that we should be accumulating wealth and assets to prepare for retirement is going to be spent in a period of austerity. It's not going to be a year or two. I think that the next 5 to 6 years is going to be very difficult. Your situation will change. I told somebody in the NDC that they don't rush into government, because government is going to be a very trying time now. It's not going to be a reward for political activities. So I would say yes, the IMF deal may pull things a little, but for the ordinary Ghanaian, recovering life is going to take a very long time, and I'm looking at 5 years and beyond.
Dr. Michael Adongo, I'm grateful for your time here on The Pulse, and early this morning as well. The deputy organizer for the National Democratic Congress, Hamilton Nixon Biney, marched a group of concerned people to the office of the Vice President to register their displeasure about Ghana's economy. We'll get to you. Chief Biney. Organization of the National Democratic Congress is underway. Apologies for that. We'll definitely get you the visuals. But Chief Biney says that the Vice President has been touted as an economic messiah, reason for which the group has decided to petition him. I will get into all of that after this break. Please stay. This country is on the verge of collapse. These are the words of the aspiring General Secretary candidate for the National Democratic Congress, Elvis Ifriankra. He said this when he paid a courtesy call on the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Nuhu Saributu, at his residence in Fadama.
I dare say that the country has virtually collapsed, and there is therefore the urgent need for a new direction. That urgent need can only come about when there's a change in government. That change in government can only come about when there is new leader.
Well, Elvis Ifriankra, who has been at the front and center of the country's politics since the year 2000, indicated that he has the required experience to steer the party in the right direction, having served as Deputy General Secretary, Deputy Campaign Coordinator and Director of Elections for the party.
I have been involved in the affairs of the party from the year 2000 as a parliamentary candidate, and I've been Deputy General Secretary, I've been Deputy Campaign Manager, I've been Campaign Coordinator, I've been Director of Elections. So since the year 2000, I've been front and center of the politics of this country. And therefore, I bring in bold, courageous leadership. And I believe that I have the experience.
Chief Imam, who gave him his blessings, also called on Allah to protect him and give him victory in his endeavors.
May Allah protect you. May Allah protect you. May Allah guide you. May Allah guide you and give you all the protection and then above all, victory for your endeavor.
The Ghana Journalists Association says it will in the coming days launch a fund which will provide financial and legal support to journalists working here in the country. The GJA President, Albert Jumfor, at a news conference to mark his 100 days in office, indicated that the initiative is aimed at addressing situations where journalists have been attacked in the line of duty, are unable to take care of the legal action due to lack of funds, is addressed. Lloyd's Mauna Tay has more in this report.
The Ghana Journalists Association is assuring journalists of providing a support fund to address attacks on them. The president of the GJA, Albert Kwabena Jumfor, says the association is very concerned about its members, thus the launch of the Journalists Support Fund.
This GJA is concerned about the welfare of journalists, and we have taken steps in that direction. The Journalist Support Fund will be launched next week with the main aim of helping to bring justice to journalists who are attacked in the line of duty.
He also added that the GJA was working at securing scholarships and training programs for journalists to enhance professionalism. The executives of the association say they've already begun discussions with Wisconsin International University College for scholarships for members who wish to further their education.
We have had positive discussions with some institutions. For instance, we have positive discussions on a scholarship deal with Wisconsin International University College, Ghana, for members who wish to further their education. Furthermore, some corporate entities such as ADB Bank, Ghana Gas, and National Lottery Authority have indicated their willingness to support specialized training programs for members.
According to Mr. Jumfor, there's been a review of the GJA annual awards, which had brought about the digitization of the awards program.
We are all aware that we live in a digital age, so we decided to go paperless for the 2022 GJA awards. Journalists were required to submit their work to an online platform, and our assessment indicates that the process was generally smooth.
He says the association sought to run a paperless system in order to ensure efficiency in the selection of award nominees. Lois Mawinate's report read to you.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. When we get back, we'll tell you about some more issues happening across the country. Please stay. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin has threatened to block the laying of a new constitutional instrument by the Electoral Commission if he is not briefed on the matters concerning the EC, the new CI, which the EC is actually laying, is undergoing some pre-laying, and is expected to make the Ghana card the only identification document to enroll onto the voters' register. We hear from the speaker shortly. But first, I want to bring in Kweku Asante, who's joining us in studio. And Kweku, you've been listening to what the concerns of the speaker is, first of all, but this is all flowing from what it is that the minority leader had raised on the floor of the House, correct?
Right. So, Blessed, indeed, today, when the business statement was presented, ordinarily it would have been presented by the majority leader. It was not available. So the majority chief whip presented the business statement for next week. And it came that minority had concerns that they had been discussing in the business committee the need to bring in the EC and NIA leadership to answer some questions. The minority are alleging that the EC is seeking to ditch its own voter base, the register, and then use the NIA database. So they are seeking to ask us some questions from them. So let's listen to Harun Idris, minority leader, who lays this ground for which the Speaker now meets this threat.
Mr. Speaker, there is a discrepancy in the numbers between what the Electoral Commission have registered as voters, up to 17 million, and what is on the roll of the National Identification Authority. And we hear that the Electoral Commission wants to rely on the National Identification Authority data. The primary question the Honorable Ahmed is asking is, so what has happened to the Electoral Commission's own biometric data? That today they are avoiding the use of their own biodata they collected, and they want to collect biodata from the National Identification Authority. But we need a reconciliation of the numbers, because we are very convinced that Article 42 confers a right on Ghanaians to be registered as voters by the Electoral Commission. And Mr. Speaker, the National Identification Authority is unlike the Electoral Commission, which by virtue of Article 45 says that it shall not be subject to the direction and control of any person or authority. The words are mine, including the President. But National Identification Authority is subject to ministerial control. And therefore, we want the two bodies to come here, Electoral Commission, NIA. Let us see the discrepancy and variance in your numbers, because we will not, Mr. Speaker, accept any attempt by the Electoral Commission to disenfranchise any Ghanaian because they want to rely on an ID card which is not available to Ghanaians. And we mean serious business on this matter. That right, we will jealously protect and safeguard the provisions of Article 42. So, Mr. Speaker, what the Honorable Ahmed is saying is that the two institutions must come here, and then we will hear them, and then reconcile the numbers. In fact, the Electoral Commission must further explain to this House how come 2021, 2022, Ghanaians of age 18 years have not been given the opportunity to be on the electoral roll. That's a denial of the right under Article 42. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution imposes a burden on us to protect this Constitution. So any effort by any institution to erode that right, we will resist it and resist that oppressor's rule.
Minority Leader Harun Idris. But obviously, there's the issue on the other side of the aisle, which has got to do with the majority side. What's the concern on this?
So indeed, you look at these claims that is coming from the minority, that the Electoral Commission is seeking to now use the Ghana card as the sole requirement to enroll onto the Ghana to the voter side. It's come up some time. The EC has been explaining. They've also been raising concerns about what last year and this year they say that the EC has failed or refused to hold continuous voter registration. They have serious concerns about that, and they want to ask the leadership of EC some questions in terms of how they are going to do that. So at the heart of the minority leaders' concern is that they met at the business committee, discussed what exactly it was that should have been on the business statement for next week. But some of those did not find expression in the statement that was delivered. And so they say that, why did that happen? Indeed, Majority Chief Whip Frank Anodompre, who stood in for the majority leader, tried to explain that it was just an omission and that ordinarily those things must have found expression in the business statement. But because of one or two reasons, it didn't. And that in terms of the request of the minority to have the EC come forward to be questioned, they'll be making some arrangements to have that. We'll hear from Frank Anodompre shortly. But we know that about 3 months ago, before Parliament went on break, NIA had cause to be in the House. Indeed, as a committee of the whole, both the minority and majority side tried to question them about what they were doing.
Did their systems were ready? At the time?
Yes, they did. Around the time, they had registered about 60 million, heading towards 17 million. They said that they were hopeful that they will register about 18 or so million before 2024 election. The minority say that If you do that, you are going to disenfranchise a number of Ghanaians, because it's not everyone who has the Ghana card. People who are of age 18 years and above are trying to get a Ghana card, but they are not getting it. So if you are making that the sole requirement for me to enroll onto the voters register, you are essentially disenfranchising me, and that will be illegal. They don't even want to wait to go to the court. They want to stop the CI in its tracks. But the way the CI works, when the CI is laid in Parliament, it cannot be amended. It has to go through the constitutional process of 21 days, after which it's passed. If they want to reject it, 2/3 of MPs have to vote to reject it. And then the entire CI is rejected. It goes back to the EC for them to edit and bring it back. But there is no way Parliament in and of itself can edit it. And so Frank Anodon has been giving some assurances that they will try and make the EC and NI leadership appear before the House.
I don't think there's a cause of alarm. And in this House, as is practice, many occasions there are businesses that have been discussed at the Business Committee and inadvertently been left out when the business statement is finally presented. I think this is pure omission, because I was at the Business Committee, just as my colleague said. It was mentioned, and the majority leader gave indication that he will eventually ensure that he finds expression in the business statement. I guess it's because the report is not finally done with. So we will relate appropriately and get the report so that we can present the report duly. But speakers to programming for these institutions to appear before us, I don't think there's any difficulty. That would also be done. So I will relate properly to the chair of the Business Committee, and I'm confident that the needful will be done. I could have agreed more with the minority leader on Article 187, I think specific clause 6. Many occasions when Auditor General report had come up, this matter has always come as a subject of discussion. And more often, we've paid just a lip service to it, practically ensuring that.
Well, there's also a response from the Speaker.
The Speaker is threatening that if EC does not brief him personally, he will not allow for the CI to be lead. Indeed, there are those who have questioned whether the Speaker has that power at all. But let's listen to what the Speaker had to say.
I have not also seen anything from the EC, and I have not been given any brief by the EC on any proposed instrument coming from them. And so I raised this some time ago. I'm yet to receive them to be briefed on it. Until that is done, they should forget about laying any such instrument in the House. Wow. I think there's been a misinterpretation and misunderstanding of the concept of independence of various state institutions or arms of government that are stated by the Constitution to be independent. The independence is in the performance of their functions. When the matter comes before Parliament, that is the performance of our function, not their function. And they cannot say they are not subject to the control of anybody, including the institution of Parliament. But at that time, that is our function we are going to perform. And we are not subject to the control of any arm of government or institution of state. So please, the EC, the Bank of Ghana, including the judiciary, should take note that their independence doesn't mean that independence has ousted Parliament from performing its functions.
And we'll certainly await a response from the Electoral Commission. Time now to obviously move away from politics and deal with health. I believe you've heard about fistula. Well, If not, don't worry. It is an abnormal connection or passageway that connects two organs or vessels that do not usually connect. They can develop anywhere between an intestine and also the skin between the vagina and the rectum and other places as well. The most common location for a fistula is around the anus, and it is painful and embarrassing ailment as many who suffer it are unable to control urine or even their poo. So here's a recap giving you details of what it is that the World Health Organization estimates that there are some 50,000 to 100,000 new cases of fistula every year. In Africa, obstetric fistula are often detected early. They are not often detected early or left unaddressed due to the lack of some care. Now, this afternoon, we're having a conversation about how we can fix this situation. But first of all, take a look at this and we'll tell you about the experts.
I keep praying to God to make my next surgery successful. What wrong have I committed to deserve this? God, please help me to get money to buy my basic needs. All my clothes smell of urine.
Meet Kuka from Ladayiri, a village in the Wa West district of the Upper West region. Kuka is in her mid-40s. Her condition developed when she went into labor. The labor produced contractions that pushed the baby's head against Kuka's pelvic bone. The soft tissues between the baby's head and the pelvic bone became compressed due to inadequate blood flow. As Kuka reeled through the pain, the delicate tissue in the pelvic area died. This has created a hole between her bladder and vagina. Kuka's labor lasted for 15 hours. The baby died eventually, leaving her with no joy. She has endured 4 surgeries to correct her fistula condition, but that hasn't made a difference.
I have undergone more than 3 surgeries, all to no avail. After my last surgery, I haven't been too well. I always get exhausted with any small task I undertake. So if the next operation will also come along with complications, then I'll prefer to live with this condition for the rest of my life. Whenever I'm in the midst of people, they always ask if any child has soiled herself with urine. I pity myself because I can't own up.
Well, so that's just a summary of how the situation works. So let's hear from the experts. Dr. Ernestina Asido is founder and CEO of EA Fistula Care Ghana. She is also a lecturer at the University of Ghana Nursing School. Dr. Asido, welcome to The Pulse. And of course, very often we don't see people talking about this condition. Yes, we're talking about the very common kind of abnormalities and diseases that we find around. But when it comes to fistula, we don't have a lot of education on it. What's accounting for this low level of awareness?
Well, I think there is generally low awareness of fistula, even among health workers. I remember somewhere last month, I met a doctor and he said, "Why are you into fistula?" I said, "Well, it's my passion." And he said, "Well, I just heard about it when we're doing obs and gynae, and it was mentioned as one of the complications. I have really not seen one before, and I'm not even really sure if it exists." And I said, "It does." So it's just neglected, and awareness is very low among the populace and even among health workers.
So it's not the case that the condition is rare to come across?
The condition is not rare, but it is rare to meet the women because they are stigmatized, and because of the stigma, they hide and they scarcely come out for treatment. And they also have a lot of attributions about the condition. So sometimes they are labeled as witches, a woman who was promiscuous during pregnancy, and because of that, the community shuns them. So they never come out till you go looking for them, but they exist.
The condition itself, most of the time it's associated to childbirth. Is that the only way by which one could have the condition?
Well, if you're talking about obstetric fistula, we're talking about fistula related to childbirth. But recently, we're having some fistulas occurring as a complication of surgeries like myotomy, like removal of fibroids, and some other complications of removal of the uterus. And then if there is malignancy or cancer of any organ around the bladder or the rectum, the woman could also develop a fistula, but it may not be childbirth related.
The solutions for anyone who has the condition obviously comes up. The belief is, well, we don't have enough facilities to take care of it, or we don't have experts who go into that and are able to, first of all, detect that early and provide care to a lot of people. How do we breach this gap?
All right. So, like I said earlier on, these women are hiding, are not even coming for treatment. The few attempts they make sometimes are even misdirected by even health workers. There are basically two main fistula centers. At the moment, even the one in the north is not working, but there is a Mankasim Fistula Center, which is owned by the Mercy Clinic, which is a Catholic institution. They have a big facility meant for fistula care. So the fistula centers are few, and the treatment options, the surgeons are also few. So most of the time, we have surgeons from Kolebu and a few from Tamale traveling all over the country, and you may not be able to count even 12 of them. And they just sacrifice to go all over carrying out the surgery. And the surgery is not a simple surgery. The women are kept for about 3 weeks. And you can't keep them in an ordinary hospital or ordinary health facility.
So they need some form of a special care. And that's why I want to talk about, for instance, EA fistula care. Do you have a center? How do you help people, particularly those in rural communities, to have access to these health services?
All right. So we have contact persons in the rural communities. We have what we call the recruiters who live within them, amongst them, and then we use methods like snowballing. We meet one woman who has it and sometimes able to direct us to another woman who also has it. So we follow them up, and then we recruit them, and then we mainly do advocacy. My institution, we don't really do repairs. But then we created the awareness that repair is the only option. So we advocate for them. We have a link with the fistula surgeons and with the fistula center. So they tell us when philanthropists will donate for the surgery, and then we organize the women in 20s or 30s, and then we present them for repair.
Does the issue about stigma, and we're just pointing that out in the report that played before the interview, where people who have the condition are not received in their societies. How are you changing people's perception about the condition?
Right. So we realize that the stigma is also related to the lack of awareness. So if a woman is blamed for being promiscuous, then morally she is shunned, and then the stench coming from the urine or the feces also contribute to the stigma. So if the community is aware, there are a few that within some community awareness, and the husband said, well, if only I knew, maybe my reaction would have been different. So changing their minds, creating the awareness, especially as to what causes the condition and what the solutions are.
Well, let's not assume that probably everyone is stigmatizing simply because they want to do so. At times it's because they may not be aware of the causative factors or the symptoms to look out for, so as to know that someone is suffering from the fistula condition. So what do you have to say to someone who's asking, well, what signs are there for me to see to know that indeed someone is suffering from such a condition?
All right, so a woman suffering from fistula cannot hide. Once she comes into a community, she's noticed. There is a peculiar stench on them. Some leak urine, some leak feces, some leak both urine and feces. And the sphincters, they can't control their sphincters. They don't even get the edge. So if it is urine, it comes uncontrollably, of course, she may smell. And sometimes most of them are poor, so even managing to maintain hygiene is also a problem. So they are just around you, and then you saying that, no, there is something wrong around here. And they themselves, some say that, well, they themselves could not stand the scent that is coming out of them. So you can't hide. It will easily be identified.
How safe is the treatment? And that's also something that will come up. Some say, well, you have to go through surgery, and it may not be corrective enough.
Well, surgery is the main treatment. But then if any woman goes through prolonged or obstructed labor, and then the tissues are weakened, if you insert just a urethral catheter, the urine will not come into contact with the soft tissues. So the erosion will not occur. So if you experience any woman with prolonged or obstructed labor inside the catheter, it's also prevented. But once it occurs, then it means that surgery is the only option. And the earlier it is detected, the better it is. The surgeries fail because they come 5 to 20 years after the disease occurs, and so many things that might have gone on around the area where the hole was created.
If the condition is not treated, is there a likelihood of complications, for instance?
Yes, there are a lot of complications. So some get early menopause. Those who don't even have menopause, they become infertile. There are some who even develop paralysis as a result of the complication. And then you can have gross infections like what we call the pelvic inflammatory diseases, which can also affect other organs in the body. And then the mental health is also important. They can commit suicide. Right. Depression, anxiety can let them commit suicide.
I'm sure you've come across some of these cases.
Yes, I've come across a lot of them.
So let me allow you to share that message with those who may be watching right now and persons who may have come across anyone having some of these symptoms that you talked about. What do they have to know? As in, what will your message be to such a person who has come across people who are suffering the condition, or those who may even be in the condition and be watching us now?
All right. So I would say that for those who are in the condition, we could share our contact with them. They can connect with us, and we will surely support them. So they even get the surgery. We support with some diapers. Some need food. Some need some rehabilitation, like blood donations and all that. So we help them to rehabilitate even before the surgery. And then we also talk to their relatives, that be supportive of them. Fistula can happen to any woman, so be supportive of them. Unfortunately, it happens to girls who are very young and they are given into marriage too early. And at that age, they can't also fend for themselves, so they are also poor. We encourage families to support them. If you support them, they clean themselves, you provide them with soap. Of course, we can manage the same to some extent and then look for care for them. It is not a spiritual disease. It is not a sinful act. It is a disease that can happen to anybody, and treatment is available.
Doc, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse, and that's what you need to know about fistula. And you're still with us here on The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. Don't forget that we have a conversation coming up. We're talking about the entertainment industry and a dialogue that is upcoming, which you need to hear about.